Why is it that so many gamers, people who are perfectly normal, polite, and maybe even shy in real life, turn into absolute monsters in the Elder Scrolls? Maybe you joined the Dark Brotherhood in Skyrim, killed that sweet old lady in her orphanage, or you went full chaos mode in Oblivion, murdering an entire town's worth of City Watch. You know that these games set you up to be the hero, but being the villain is just always so much more fun. So why do we love playing the villain in games like Skyrim and Oblivion? Is there something wrong with us that we're hiding from deep down? Or is there something more going on? On my very first playthrough of both Skyrim and Oblivion, it was clear as day that you're set up to be the hero. Oblivion has you working to save the world, on request of the Emperor from the very start. Skyrim has you directed by the local Jarl to meet with the Greybeards, and tell you you're the foretold Dragonborn. Obviously, the writers and devs want you to do the good guy thing straight away, and save the world. But and I'm pretty confident everyone else, didn't do that. Usually, we put it off to go steal everything that wasn't nailed down, killing chickens just because. And before we knew it, we were leading the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood. So what gives? Why do we indulge these less savoury activities, despite the clear direction to do the opposite? One of the most obvious reasons is that games give us a safe place to break the rules. Sociologist Howard Becker defines deviance as behaviour that breaks social norms. Killing someone, stealing, betraying a community, these are all deviant in real life. But in Skyrim, they're quest objectives. Joining the Dark Brotherhood is the perfect example. In real life, completing assassination contracts would make you a monster. But in Skyrim, you're rewarded with gold, gear, and a creepy family of fellow murderers cheering you on. Same with Oblivion's Dark Brotherhood questline. You literally sneak into a party and murder an entire group of seemingly innocent people. Instead of a punishment, you get praised as a rising star in Sithis' cult. If this was in our day-to-day life, almost all of us would never have even conceived of killing a single person, let alone build a whole career out of it. And there's a bunch of reasons for this, but one of the many is not wanting to be seen as deviant. Breaking social rules, subverting expectations, and engaging in delinquent behaviour are all causes for you to be ostracised from your friends, family, and other social groups, which is a huge part of why we don't engage in typically evil behaviour. The Elder Scrolls and other video games provide something called safe transgression. You push against morality without real consequences. Where in real life you're not likely to punch someone in the face for being irritating. In Skyrim, as soon as Nazim opens his stupid mouth, I've already hit quick save and drawn my weapons. The cost of being deviant in Skyrim is minimal to none, as it's either a small bounty to pay to the guards, or a speedy jail sentence. Or, in most cases, a quick load. Psychologists refer to this as a sandbox for taboo, a place where we can indulge in our delinquent behaviour with no threat to our actual lives. Given in our day-to-day we're confined to following the rules at all times, no matter how hard that can be, it's little wonder why games that give us consequence-free environments are so much fun to express yourself in. But it's not just about breaking rules. The Elder Scrolls is built for identity play. Psychologist Erik Erikson argued that experimenting with different roles is a core part of how humans form identity. And sociologist Irving Goffman said life itself is like theatre. We're always performing roles depending on the stage we're on. His example was famously on air hostesses. He pointed out the key differences between the front stage and the backstage. The front stage was when the hostess was interacting with customers, serving drinks, assisting with questions and safety briefings, and generally engaging with people on board the flight. In these instances, the expectation is clearly for the hostess to be friendly, probably smile, be upbeat, and generally conform to the expectations that both their employer and the customers place upon them. The backstage, to contrast this, is where the masks can at least partially slip, and they can relax a bit further towards their more natural temperaments. Perhaps this is in the cabin where there are no customers, or in a staff waiting room between flights. Here, the overt niceties can be discarded, as there's no inherent requirement to live up to such high expectations at all times. They aren't able to act exactly to their full and most truthful selves, because they're still in a performance, the off-duty employee, so they probably can't do things like gamble, swear plentifully, or act how they might at home. But they are able to perform their backstage life and revert slightly towards their normal selves. Now, whilst Goffman highlights that this is incredibly tiring and draining for people doing this for employment, in Skyrim, the villain role is one of the most tempting performances you have access to. Looking again at the Dark Brotherhood, it's not just killing people, although certainly there's a lot of that. It's joining a secret society, donning the attire and mask to assimilate into that group, performing rituals with the Night Mother, suddenly becoming the listener. That's an entirely new identity to inhabit, a new mask to wear, a new performance to play. Or think about Oblivion's Daedric quests. One day you're a humble adventurer, a divine knight of the Nine. The next you're carrying out vile orders for Molag Bal or Sheogorath. These quests literally let you try on the identity of a Daedra's champion, something obviously far outside the normal social order. In real life, you can't just flip identities without consequences. Imagine going your whole life behaving one way, just to suddenly wake up and do a 180-degree turn. You could lose your friends, family, jobs, hobbies. Your entire life could look different instantly, and probably not for the better. In the Elder Scrolls, you can. There's no real-world consequences for your actions, and even though the game will respond to your choices on some level, ultimately you're rarely locked out of anything actually important. You can be the leader of the Thieves Guild, the Dark Brotherhood, Archmage for the Arcane University, and the leader of the Companions, all at the same time. If at any point you choose something and don't really like it, just hit up an old save and boom, all your problems are gone. Having the ability to switch identities whenever you like, explore a different method of playing in the world, and inhabit a different performance at a moment's notice is a freeing experience that you can't mimic in real life. Another big reason is power. Having authority and power lends itself strongly to being the villain. If someone is exerting their control and influence over people regularly, it becomes harder and harder for the actions of that person to remain good. It's part of the reason why healthcare CEOs are so evil, whereas a nurse is generally seen as quite good. Power comes from authority, and Max Weber, a sociologist, broke authority down into 3 types: traditional authority, legal rational authority, and charismatic authority. Traditional authority comes rooted in history and ceremony, like the Greybeards. They don't have troops or lands to control, but a sense of leadership innate to their position. Legal rational authority is best shown by the Empire. They are the legal rulers of Skyrim, as the High King in Skyrim is ruled by the Emperor. This authority doesn't come innate to the person, nor is it created from sheer force of will. This is a letter of the law authority that got there by playing the systems and creating the rules to suit their needs. This is the method that governments and corporations use to exert their will. Villains in the Elder Scrolls almost always rely on charismatic authority. This is the force of character that compels people to follow them at the expense of anything else. Look at Mankar Cameron in Oblivion. He led the Mythic Dawn by being that charismatic leader and appealing to Daedric teachings. Astrid, the leader of Skyrim's Dark Brotherhood, doesn't have laws or traditions behind her. She has loyalty. She leads the sanctuary through her sheer force of will, as the Night Mother doesn't speak to her directly or imbue her with any other form of authority. She negotiates the contracts, she keeps the family members in line, and even deals with recruitment. These leaders are compelling, and in our own real world are very capable cult leaders more often than not, practically brainwashing people into subjugation. You get drawn in by the charisma and compelled decision-making of these factions, and once you're in, you earn your own authority, assuming the mantle of listener or guildmaster. You now have the power of contracts, you get the rewards, and you are in control. No moral compromises, no right thing to do, just raw agency. That's why GTA-style chaos runs are so fun, and why murdering NPCs in The Elder Scrolls feels powerful instead of shameful. In that moment, you control the stage completely and bend it to your will. Something very few of us in the real world could, or would, ever do. Maybe it's the promise of power, but maybe it's simpler than that. Sometimes we just need an outlet. The catharsis hypothesis, going all the way back to Aristotle and later Freud, is the idea that art lets us purge emotions in a safe way. In these consequence-free sandboxes, you're in full control to indulge in whatever action you deem. Had a bad day at work? Go and punch some nobles in the face. Someone cut you up in traffic? Steal a horse. The taxman screw you again? Assault an entire bandit camp solo, murdering everyone, including the prisoners. In order to join the Dark Brotherhood in Skyrim, you have to kill someone called Grelod the Kind, the cruel orphanage owner in Riften. It feels cathartic because the character is despised by all the children there, and the contract is even given to you by an escaped child of this orphanage. The game sets it up so that doing something horrific like an assassination feels like justice. It allows us to take the straightforward path to solving a problem by murdering a woman, and in so doing, allows us to indulge in our catharsis. Here in the boring real world, there are rarely opportunities to do so. Sure, you might consider screaming at the customer who misunderstood the famous expression, "the customer is always right." By the way, the full expression is, "the customer is always right in matters of taste," which is not the same thing. But you're not likely to crawl over the counter and smash their teeth in, because here in the real world, your actions have consequences. Outcomes are beyond your control, and often, we do not have power. In Skyrim and other video games, we're free to do what we want when we want to do so. So exploring our more murderous side happens all the time. And some of those pesky emotions we've kept locked away throughout our day can come out. Just think of how incredible it felt watching Jon Snow punch Ramsay Bolton in the face repeatedly in Game of Thrones. Or how justified we feel when we kill Serana's dad. Still criminal behaviour, but feels incredible. Finally, there's curiosity. Villain quests almost always reveal sides of the story you'd never see otherwise. In Skyrim, the Dark Brotherhood isn't just about killing, it's about secret lore, hidden rituals, and a whole new set of characters. The game actually has a brief arc, should you have opted not to join the Brotherhood. Instead of killing any of these prisoners, you could have attacked Astrid and freed yourself from the house. From there, you can find the town guard and stage an assault on the last remaining sanctuary in Skyrim, burning it all to the ground. This would definitely count as the good guy version of the questline, but you miss some of the best quests and characters in the whole game if you did so. You'd miss Astrid's betrayal, Cicero's madness, or even getting to kill the Emperor twice. Sociologically, this ties into Karl Marx's conflict theory. If you're unfamiliar, the theory basically tells us that the proletariat, a fancy word for workers, is unaware of the systems that work to keep the bourgeoisie, those in powerful positions, in control. And as such, we're unable to fight back against this in any meaningful way. If you don't know of the invisible controls placed upon you, you can't undo them. In Skyrim, the evil run-throughs actually are on the side of the proletariat, as they provide another lens to look at things. Rather than either accepting the system as it is, or even fighting within the confined rules it determines, the Dark Brotherhood and the Thieves Guild provide a means of fighting back outside of the existing structures of power. Murdering the Emperor, assassinating powerful targets, stealing from nobility. All these actions reclaim power for the workers, in a way that the ruling powers can't possibly account for. Ironically, sometimes the best heroes are villains. And besides this, honestly, sometimes the villain stories are just better written. Admit it, the Dark Brotherhood questline is way more memorable than most of Skyrim's main quest. Why do we play the villain in the Elder Scrolls? Because it's fun to break rules when the stakes aren't real. Because games let us try on forbidden identities. Because villain paths give us the power and control we lack in our day-to-day life. Because they offer catharsis. And because the villain stories are often just the best ones. In real life, morality comes with consequences. But in video games, villainy is just another story to live out. And sometimes, those villain stories reveal more about humanity than the heroic ones ever could. What about you? Were you more of a Dark Brotherhood assassin, or did you stick to being the lawful citizen and just focus on the College of Winterhold and the companions? Besides that, if you have an idea for another way you'd like to hear how sociology can explain our love for a 14-year-old game, drop me a comment below. I do reply to everybody and genuinely love receiving the feedback. Please don't forget to subscribe and feel free to check out my breakdown of why we can't quit Skyrim. See you next time.